Hi everyone, welcome back into the classroom. Welcome to the Paint It Simply channel. So, those of you that are new, we have two channels. We have the Paint It Simply channel, and then we have the more detailed channel that does a lot of different variety over on the Jansen Art Education. Or if you just look up my name, David Jansen, you'll go to the Jansen Art Education, okay? So I'm going to do a couple of paintings, one for each channel here today, and then I'm going to work on that Western over there too. I've got a new Western that's coming to the Jansen Art one. So today what I'm going to do, this is a 12 by 16 board here, and I'm going to paint some large flowers. I did this painting the other day, floral, and roses and stuff onto the Jansen Art Education channel, and I used a 3/4 inch brush, and I really enjoyed that. So I want to show it over here on this channel. We're just going to paint a couple of simple roses, but large brush. Large brush painting is something that all of us need to do because it's a good technique. It drives home, teaches you to rock and roll your brush and use different edges of it and stuff, rather than always switching to a smaller brush, okay? So we're going to give it a go, okay? So again, it's 16 by 12, just as a regular board. I gave it a coat of the Heritage canvas prep medium, sanded it lightly with 180 grit sandpaper, then we're going to go. All the colors that I'm going to use here are listed over in the video description. Everything I do use is in the video description, and if it's not in stock on Amazon or something, you can always write us at our studio or visit jansenartstudio.com and you'll find everything there. Always email us if you have a question, and they'll be able to help you. I also put out two neutrals. This is the medium beige and the medium white. I like sometimes to start paintings off with neutrals just because it just gets a little color onto the surface and gets rid of the white. And I think that's what I'm going to start with today. I'm going to take a 2-inch wide brush, and we're going to paint mostly with this 3/4 today. And I'm just going to add maybe a little extender. This is extender medium. This will thin it and slow the drying time just a bit. This right here is the Daravan Open medium, and it is thicker and slows the drying time. So you have some choices. I use the thicker stuff as I develop the painting. I start out thin and I build to thickness. That's what I do. So here I have that. That's kind of a pretty nice neutral color. I love and sometimes I just like a tiny touch of blue in it, which causes this to really gray over. Do you see that? Really gray over, and it's just such a pretty color here. So, and I'm just going to get real casual with this, maybe even into some more of the browns here. I love casual florals. I just, so many of you, you enjoy the flowers that I paint, and you write such wonderful things on there about it. And yeah, I could spend the rest of my life just painting flowers. I love them. So, but it took a long time, took a lot of practice for me to get them. So I'm going to rinse that out. And the color is a little thin out here, just a little bit thicker right into here. Now, sometimes when I'm going to paint a floral, if I feel my color in here is a little bit too thick, what I'll do is I'll back some of it out with a paper towel. So, and I want to paint some open flowers. I have a couple of photos up here. This is Anne Cotterill, if those of you who've never studied her. She was a beautiful, beautiful artist in composition-wise. And I don't copy her stuff, but I just like to have it around and look at it for good inspiration and stuff. So she does beautiful open flowers, all different kinds of flowers and stuff. And that's what I'm going to kind of do today. Just a couple large flowers for you. So I'll put them like maybe right there, and maybe a smaller one right off over here. Just a real simple composition. This is our large brush practice, right? Okay, so we're going to start out thin. Let's make a nice soft pink. A really good pink is actually Naphthol Red Light, which is warm, and the Quinacridone Violet, which is cool. And then I'll add some white to this. And so if I want to, I'll start it out slightly warmer. So I'll increase the Naphthol Red Light. I'm going to make it about a value 7 or so. Let's add some extender medium to this, and we'll just light casual. See, I'll let it hit some of the background color there, and just soften out. So, I'll push it out here and then let it mix up a little bit in here and soften out. Gives me some nice different tones here. let's come right back up over here. Maybe this one's going to be here. And you see, I just kind of move my color around. So that just kind of bases it in. I can decide right now, which I really like to do, some contrast into the painting, and I'm going to have some contrast here. One of the things I love to drive into the center of the painting is burnt sienna and green. It's one of my favorites, and sometimes if I want it to stay thick, I'll add so anytime I want the colors to stay thick, I add the open medium. So I want this shadows to have some interest there. Normally, this is a little different than what I do. Normally, I let the shadows get very transparent and I thin them. But we want to try some different things here. So I'm going to do it a little thicker so it has some power. But I'm going to push harder with my brush so that I get some different types of interest here. So I'm looking for impressionism here and some different looks. Does that make sense? So I want to drive some different looks. And I'm using the large brush because this gives me a beautiful look to the painting here. Just like that movement. And you can see how it starts out powerful and then I lift the pressure of my brush. In other words, I deposit the color and then I lift off to soften the color through. And I just want to have a few little movements here to suggest and just say, yeah, this is kind of moving out there in different ways. I want more. I want a little thicker, heavier, thicker here. And I don't need to add open medium. I have it in that little pile right there. So I want this almost opaque right in here, right where I want the viewer's eye to come into that. Now, if I want to create transparency, this is important. If I want to create transparency or translucency through a petal, take this green just ever so lightly into the area that you're going to have the pinks of this flower. So that will help this start to look a little bit transparent. Because what's behind all of that, these flowers, is the green. Does that make sense? Okay, let's pick up a little more burnt sienna, and we'll give the idea of our stem lines here, right? Maybe the idea, just a little triangle shape, gives it the feeling of a couple of thorns or something there. And just in the... There you can also put in a couple shapes for maybe just impressionistic leaves here. Just impressionism of them right there. Sometimes I'll just take the chisel of my brush and just drop in like a little stem or something. Just impressionism here. We're just giving the impression of leaves. I'm not painting them. Okay, now let's start. I'll just wipe my brush. I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to pick up some cooler color, or maybe a little bit of this one. Keep the color thicker now. And this, and a little bit of that open medium. Let's come down in here, and let's set the bottom bowl of this rose that we want. And I'll come over here, and I'll do the same thing. This is where the bowl of the rose will set. And you can see, now watch what I do with my brush. Always watch the tip of my brush. My hand's way back here. This gives a softness to the tip. But what I do is I'll make a mark and then I'll change over and use a different set of the brush. So I get a different type of mark. And it also deposits a slightly different color. That's really important, guys. Also deposits a slightly different color to the next mark because you're using a different part of the brush. So when I paint with a big brush, I like to constantly turn it and work it into different areas here so that I get different colors. Does that make sense? That's where I really like it. Now, let's drive a little bit of this into the center of the flower there. Okay. And you can see I turn just a bit. I don't want to do too many marks. I want to leave this large brush casual feeling to the flower. So I'll turn it a bit and I'm turning my brush. See, it has different colors on different edges. So I'm using different marks here to get real loose with it. That's what I want to do. Let's go even a little cooler maybe over here. So a little more open medium, just a touch of the red violet. a deeper color here. So this flower stays a little soft. Now if I want to soften that out, I'm going to just pinch wipe that color off my brush and just push out like this, just so that that rose starts to soften up a bit more. Let's put in a little bit of the roundness to it there. Now I'm going to increase the contrast, increase the dark and the cool into this main rose here. This is the one I really want to drive a lot of interest into here, so I'll push this a little more red violet into there, deeper red violet, okay? And I'll pinch wipe that brush. I love the yellows in there, Diarylide Yellows, a little bit of the Hansa Yellow, a little bit of the yellow oxide. Add some open medium to it. Let's just pull down. See it, just a real quick strike. Now, see what's on my brush now. I picked up this violet because I pulled down there. And if I don't wipe my brush, that's why I wipe my brush, I remove some of that. I'll go back even and redress this yellow. So I'm depositing this yellow. But if I go back again, I soften it out too much because I'm carrying red with it. So I've added the mark that I want to add. Here, let's just do that. See, and I'll pick up that. Sometimes I'll just wipe it and then do a softer, but you can see it picked up some of the other violets and stuff in it. So, and I love it like this. I know that's crazy. It was just, and I have so many people that say, okay, that's enough, stop it. And if you like it, yeah, do it. Something about a big brush. And, you know, when you're doing a rose, if you just get that bowl in and you get that center in, you already have a pretty flower. And this is Impressionism. So you don't have to be absolutely perfect. Let's warm this up. Let's add some open medium. Go to our Naphthol Red Light. Some open medium. Let's add some white to this. This makes us a nice, but don't overmix it. This is the beautiful thing that a large brush will give you, is that you don't need to overmix it. Let's add just a touch of some of these other colors here, and let's just pull a big mark right here for that front petal. Maybe pick up a bit more texture right here, and we will pull in some of the front petals. Let's go a little more white into that. And I want to drag some of that green. Does that make sense? I want to drag some of that green. Let's grab some of this right here. Let's build this petal right up in. Let this come around to that back side there. Okay, now that petal is a little too straight for me. I'll pick up a bit more light, and we'll just add a secondary little mark there, which will help round that petal over. Now, if we go to the cool side, let's take some of our violets, both our violets. That quinacridone is really important. Maybe a little bit of green. This will tone it, and then a touch of white here, but mostly some of your violets. Let's head over to the cool side here as we push that color in. Maybe a little bit more green, which will give me a touch more transparency here. And I can push. Sometimes you'll see me push. I love to push color. Just like that. Now I can take a touch of the lighter color and maybe give this a light little edge so that you see the rose changing color going around. That's kind of important. Let's reset. I'm going to take some yellow and some of the violet onto my brush. So yellow and the violet onto my brush, and reset the bowl right here, right there a bit. And if you notice, I try not to stroke too many times. Because see that beautiful mark you get there? If you stroke it again and again and again, you're just going to blend it to one color and the rose is going to lose its interest. What I do is I touch the surface and I make the mark lifting off at the same time. So I touch, lift off, and so I get that draggy mark through, which sets the whole feeling of the flower. Let's come right up here and develop like the edge of the rose, the front edge of the rose here. Okay. A little bit more edgy here. A little bit more white. Just pulling down here. I almost stroked too many times there. I lost some of this because I just stroked too many times. So I just come back lightly, hit it a couple of times, and put it back in. Let's go over to the cool side here. A little red violet and Quinacridone Violet, and add this soft little edge here. Over here, maybe just some marks or indications of it over there, right? And I'm just kind of finding the shape of the rose here that I want to use here. And maybe a little petal right in here, something like that. And I'm watching my lights to my darks right here. I don't need to add anything. This is really thick in here. So I'm actually thickening the rose as I'm going. Now, I just destroyed the bowl of the rose, and that is something that will hurt me in the long run. So I'm going to pinch wipe my brush. I'm going to take some open medium here, some of my colors again, maybe even a touch of yellow into this, and I'm going to restate my bowl. I always have to see the bowl of the rose. That is what makes the rose really round. So, and I kind of lost it there, so I want to make sure I put that back in. I'll wipe my brush. I want to get this motion back in right there. Right in there like that. Let's take some of that real deep and redefine this center right here again. Right there like that. That's kind of pretty. And I think before I go too much farther, I'm going to add some little light petals here. Up into the front. Softer, light petals. Maybe a bit more light, maybe a bit of yellows into that. Let's step over here to the side with some yellows, a bit of our pinks and whites. Model that on the brush. Let's see what this looks like. That's pretty. Just quick little marks right there like that. And that's for all you that are beginners, that's about as hard as you get. To touch it like that, one little, and walk away. That's really hard to do because you want to touch it again. We all think the next mark is going to make it better, and it doesn't. I've never seen it do that, so it's best just to stop. But we have a hard time to stop. So I'll pick up just a little. Now I'm using just a corner of the brush here to make a few little marks. So I don't want to cut my rose right in half there. So I want to get more of a little bit of the pink and stuff right in here. Maybe a small edge, just a little edge of color that I'll pick up here. And I'll just give a little bit of that pink up onto that side. And then let's soften back here using just a corner of our brush. Let's pick up a little light, a little red right on the corner. And we'll make a few little marks or turns here inside the rose to simulate little petals there onto the inside, which is kind of a pretty little thing. Maybe just a tiny bit of it to get an edge of a petal right there coming around. And I always like that yellow and that red violet restated somewhere in there. Don't do it too many times. It will destroy everything. A little deeper red violet right there. That works. And then you can always make small little marks, just small little marks to help put some of that color in there. That's kind of pretty. I could round that up a bit. That petal's a little square, but you know, you could take some dark like this and round that up. You can always, it's okay to always come back with a little bit of dark and just round that up a bit. That's kind of pretty. Kind of a pretty little one. Let's keep the other one more simple. Let's grab some yellow, some of this pink, some of our open medium here. Let's keep very simplistic. Maybe a couple of marks there for this petal. Head over towards the shadow color, coming down this side just a bit like that, right? A little bit lighter up here for a petal coming in on the light side there. Maybe a few little marks right here. What really makes a rose, and let me show you. So you have kind of a tough time there finding it, so I'm going to take a little of my quinacridone, some open medium, and some of my red violet, maybe even a touch of the yellow into that. And I'll restate the bowl. See, that's what gives it its real rose look right there. And really what does it is that center. When I push the center here, that's what really turns it into a rose, see? So you've got to make sure you get that center. And the other thing that's really important, we've restarted our Academy. So if you haven't, if you watch these videos and you like it, you can go on, and you're on Facebook, go over and look at the Academies of Art. We have about 1,300 members there. We share photos and talk about paintings. And one of the things I notice in a lot of the sharing of the photos is they get the same color from here all the way to here. And the rose should have the deepest color in the very center of the rose, and then the rose gets a little lighter as it gets further out. So the deepest part of the color of the rose is in there, and that's what you want to keep. You want to, and so if you see the same color, the same value going out, you want to vary your values a little bit. So here we go. Yeah, and then I'll take a little bit of this, some of this cooler, maybe just a touch of white. And see, I'm modeling my brush with all kinds of colors. See, I'm watching that. And I'll use those colors and just little marks here. I tell you, I really am enjoying painting with this larger brush. Normally the 10 is my favorite brush, the 10 flat. And so that's this one right here. And so you can see I'm quite a bit bigger. And, and I'm enjoying it. Let's push a little petal right here. Maybe just a mark or two right here and just say, there's that other rose right there. A little different shape, a little different feeling. I'm going to add a touch more white to this one right here, this edge, to that one right there. So that comes around. Maybe, so even after I paint the other rose, I always come back and revisit my other one just to make sure. Now let's go over here. It could have a slightly darker center right in here, a little bit more. That's what, see how that really makes the shape of the rose. Let's go soft. Let's go some yellows, some softer colors, a little bit of our violets. Keep this one soft, not as much color into it. Right? And so what I do is I pull down, I pulled down, rotated my brush, took a mark, and then had my brush flat again and took a mark. And so you can take multiple strokes if you're turning your brush. Does that make sense? And when I paint with the large brush, I turn it a lot. So there's a mark, that's a petal. I'll come back, restate my brush, reload it, put in another mark, and let that just go like that. Maybe lengthen this. I always look for the oval shapes and stuff to the roses. Their shape, how far you stroke out that petal and stuff is really important. Let's just put a bit of that light right across like that. Call that one a bit more light, mottled. Let's pull a lighter little petal here, right across like that. And then we'll head down into the shadows and just work a little shadow color here, right like that, down into this side. Let's just try blurring this and seeing what happens here as we just blur that edge and let that stay really, really soft right there. And then I come back and I'll look, maybe I want to draw that edge a bit more, maybe a tiny little mark right there onto the light. I'll use just a corner of my brush now for any of the final little marks that I like to have. Maybe this one right here, a little lighter. And I'll just mark it again. Maybe a touch more light on this one, which will lift it up on top of that other one. It needs a bit more thick paint. See where it's digging just a little bit? That's telling me my paint's too thin. So I need a little more thickness. And I want to restate that bowl just a bit here. just like that. So that bowl is so important. So I just took a little mark like that to reshadow. Now I can add more contrast to these roses. And, and what is contrast? Well, my majority of my background here is light, so the contrast is going to come from dark colors. So if I push more dark into here, push a little bit more shadow into here, this side, that's going to give more contrast to my flowers. So maybe I add another little bit of dark right in here into that rose on this side, pull in, let some of that transparency pick it up, and I'm adding contrast. Does that make sense? Maybe a bit of my red in here. My red painters would like that. Right into there, just incorporate some of that color in there. Maybe some of that red right back here. Here, just push it into that flower. That's kind of pretty right there. Sometimes I don't like leaving with the shadow, so I'll put a little yellow and light here and just push an edge here of something just to say it's there, right? I could put little petals in there, but I think that all works. Not too bad. And I like it. So let's just take some of this color here. Everyone loves it when I just make little ghost flowers out here too. Little ghost. And a ghost is just a rounding little shape and a little bit for the idea of the shadows. And then I'll soften off the edges here and just let that just sit back there, softly back there. I'll put some light green and stuff into it, but sometimes I like to, in the very center up here, take my violets and stuff, maybe violets and a little green, and I'll push that into like right in here as that is maybe another darker color. See, it's a huge contrast, right? Huge contrast here. And let's get some yellows and some reds here. Model that up and just push some of that color around here. And then I'll sometimes take my paper towel and drag through so you're picking up just some of that other color. See, it's all I need is the color. I'll thin that if I want to do something else further out. Little marks, little things going on. I'll thin it. And I look for color movements here. You know, just color and movement. That's really what I like. Now we'll add some greens to this. Some nice contrasting greens here. We'll watch how we're going to contrast our flowers. So that's really contrasting. And I'm going to start adding some open medium to this so that not open, but extender medium. So I thin it out. So I'll use this for like some negative painting here to drive a bit more of the contrast. See, that contrast, that dark, it's driving it. And what that dark does is it pushes the background back, lightens that forward petal, makes it look lighter. And then I get more depth into my painting here. So we'll look at that. Maybe just small touches. Let's add some extender so it's thin. Maybe just some small touches out through here. You know, you just need a little touch of that color. Let's go maybe a bit of green and some yellow. Add some extender. So this is thin. Even that dirty red violet in there just gives you that beautiful, almost brownish type of green color that's pretty. And I'm going to go around now and set some contrast to the painting. What I want to see as far as contrast and nice, beautiful, impressionistic strokes. That's what I want here. The impressionism of it. I love the impressionism. Let's redefine some stems here, but really these kinds of stems here I can do in the light. And sometimes, and I don't have my favorite one here, but you can use a palette knife, or we have a brush that has an angle on it, and you scrape through like that, and you'll pull that light color of that stem, and then you can add some shadow to it. So that actually becomes like a little highlight to your stem. It works really easy and fast. Let's take some Hansa, some green. We'll make some lighter, brighter, fun greens here, right? Model this up, maybe a little yellow, oxide and green. It's a little more toned. Let's come right out through here and just apply a mark, maybe a bit of a light here. Let's apply a mark for the leaves. Keep them very simple. You know, I always loved Helen Van Wyck always says, get playful with your leaves. They're the foundation of everything that you're doing. They don't have to be perfect stuff. Just get playful with them. And I like that. So, but this is all big brush practice. See how I'm turning? When you watch this, guys, watch what I'm doing with my brush. I don't always tell you. I forget it a little bit. I get into it and forget to tell you. But I don't want you just like 1, 2, 3, turn. But as I draw stuff, see that was one mark this way. I turned my brush over, made a mark this way. And you see 2 different colors coming out. Do you see that? That, when I big brush paint, that is so important. Because look at my colors here, see? They're different on each side of the brush, see? So if I make a mark leaning on this brush, that's one color. If I lean it on this brush, they're different because my brush is modeled. If I turn it over and lean over here, it's going to have some paint coming out in it. That's where it is. That's why I wipe my brush. You don't see me cleaning my brush. I want this large brush, casual nature. Now, what this also means is it's impossible for you to copy me on this, and it's impossible for me to paint it again. But we're not doing that, right? We're just learning some stuff. That's all we're doing, right? We're just learning. See how I'm just rotating and turning and using my brush in different ways. That's the important part of it. Now I can restate some green back into here and pull that green in if I want that, or pull out if I want to soften it, right? And those are just really pretty colors to do that with. Let's go a little bit brighter, maybe just a touch of white right out here, and just hit a few little, some of these beautiful little greens here, right out here, some marks. Just carry that out. Maybe a touch of, just go thin, extender into this. So we'll carry some of the yellows and the greens, softer, different, right out over here. So we've got more greens, yellow greens, some soft ones. Restate a little green onto these leaves here, right like that. That's all they need. I don't think I'll do anything with there. I do like to put a little light green, just the chisel of the brush, ideas of stems in some of them, because stems give the viewer movement. Does that make sense? So it's giving me movement through my composition. Stems just kind of pull your eye into composition, to movement. Let's take a little more shadow green. So we've done this composition in about 30 minutes. Isn't it kind of fun? That's what a big brush can do for you, because a model brush, can do a lot of the work for you in a painting really quick if you allow it. No, I like that. See how that blurred into that green? I like that blurred edge there. That's real pretty right in there. It gets a little point in there. Now I could lift up that edge of that petal. I'll rinse my brush this time, because I want to be very specific with this color, and I want it to be very thin, so I'm going to go a little extender in my brush and then just pick up a tiny bit of this white right on the edge. It's a tiny bit. This is called the petal edging technique. So I use mostly a brush, and I'll roll over onto this edge, and I'll draw that careful little edge of that petal. Maybe that's too much. Just wipe through just a bit. So you can see, you can get different looks to it. Just draw it over until you see that edge of that petal a bit more. So this is the petal edging technique. And if you go over onto the Jansen Art Education, that channel. And you go down below the main page, there's a little tiny search button right there. And if you type in petal edging, my videos on that channel on petal edging will come up and you can watch them. And there's a bunch of them. And petal edging is a technique I use to draw a lot of shape to roses. So it is a great, great little technique. Let's put a little green into that. Right there. Like that. Maybe just a bit of that edge right here. Bring that right back up. So that's a pretty little painting there. You know, the one color that I don't have in there, and you don't need it, but it would totally change everything, is a bit more of that blue-gray. Let's try just a bit of it. Some blue, some white, some medium beige. Let's try a real soft blue-gray. Some thin. Because watch how it'll change the feeling of the composition here. This little blue-gray, it puts a coolness into it. Right now it's got a lot of warmth into it. This will put a cooler feeling into it as well. You can do it if you like. I love it sometimes. And it's a nice, like a little cloudy kind of look that pulls through the painting here. And I love it sometimes. Sometimes not. Sometimes I do. And I love it in Impressionism. And so I'll get that. Let's drop that a little heavier, maybe right down here. And just leave that right there. It'll lift that right off. Right there. And maybe take some of our soft greens right into it here. Just take some of this color right into it and soften it back and stuff. Makes it, it's a nice pretty little color. Yeah, little dark sides, little bit where you might like something. Let's pull a little darker, a little beige, a little blue, a little darker touch, thin. Let's see what that looks like right up in here. That's kind of pretty. Just a bit of it there. See, just a bit of it pulling through. Impressionism. I love this kind of real casual look. And I'm so inspired, you know, where do I do this? I'm so inspired by Richard Smith. And if you've never seen that, put in his name, Richard Smith. And he created a technique called the Grand Master technique. It's an alla prima technique, what I'm using here. And it's just, he was just so wonderful at it. And, I've really been inspired by his paintings for about 20 years, just watching some of it, and just does great things. I'm going to add a few little sparks, what I call little sparks of color, into some of this. Little sparks of this light little blue around. And I like that. So you could develop a little more contrast, yes, no, but you can see it's a fun little technique. You know, take just a little over a half hour here, so we're about 35 minutes, 38, somewhere right around there. And it's just a great little technique. Put that in a slightly darker frame so it pops more, or a linen frame with a little bit of gold, that would look really rich. If you're going to put, if you're going to use it in a gold frame, take some of your yellow oxide and some of your Hansa Yellow, thin it, add a little bit of extender to it, and add a few marks of those yellows like this. See how that yellow just pops through there like that? And so if you want it in a really rich gold frame, think about that right now as you're painting this, and add some of that, because that will pick up the yellow in the composition as well. And it's really pretty, and you might want to add a bit more of that yellow right into your rose, like right there. It'll just pop. And so, if you want that elegance of a gold frame with a liner, that'll give it to you, okay? So there you go. So I'm putting this one up here on the Paint It Simply channel. And then those of you who want to, if I'm going to go right away and I'm going to use a big brush and we're going to paint a container of these flowers over on Jansen Art Education, our other channel. And then right after that, we're going to be doing the Western. So I have that. So and I'm going to try to add 1 video, 2 videos a week to the Paint It Simply channel and a couple videos a week to the Jansen Art channel. Get all of you thinking different kinds of techniques, because I have so many artists painting so many different things. And don't forget, you can come over to, if you're on Facebook, put in Academies of Art. That's our group. Set in a thing to join it, and just post your paintings in there, and we just talk art over there and inspiration and stuff like that, okay? All right, I'll see you guys. Have fun. Don't forget to hit the subscribe. Don't forget to help us out by liking the video. A like to the video does great things for our analytics, and we try to present as much of stuff as possible to you for free, these lessons like this. And the only thing that does that is getting our videos out further, so that because we generate a little bit of revenue from that advertising that the advertisers pay for it. That's all controlled by YouTube. We have no control over that. But 100% of that goes into the production of these free lessons on YouTube, okay? So when you do that, you're supporting us, okay? Thanks very much. We appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one.